Okay, welcome everybody to Bitcoin it's not for beginners. No one's really a beginner. Yeah, we all here to learn. We all here to grow, and hopefully, even in the course of the webinar, hopefully I can learn something new. This is interactive, so if you feel brave, you want to turn on your camera, you want to say, "How's it?" I see a lot of friends here, people I haven't spoken to in a while. I respect you guys for taking time out of your day and joining us on a learning journey. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to start off with the beginning, a little intro, and then I'm going to explain the raffle. Those of you are here, you'll be eligible for the raffle. We'll go through the explanation one or two more times, but essentially, the name of the game with the raffle, I see a lot of seasoned Bitcoiners, a lot of people with maybe you're not holding satoshis yet, so it's just the raffle. The name of the game is to get you to touch and feel this thing and see exactly why it's so magical and why it's so why it's so captivating the world at the moment. So I'm just going to share my screen and let's kick it off. There we go. Can everyone see my screen? Number one most asked question of 2020 and 2021. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Let's go. So what are we going to do today? Today we're going to talk about Bitcoin, what exactly it is. We're going to cover, the introduction. What is money anyway? I think that is probably the biggest takeaway from Bitcoin is that it kind of forces you to go back to first principles and try and understand things at a depth that you wouldn't otherwise maybe go into. So we go through our lives, we see a lot of, we experience a lot of things, we touch a lot of things, and we don't really understand it properly. Well, the problem, essentially, once you start delving into the subject a little bit, you realize that we've been lied to and cheated and stolen from, and the entire system that's built around fiat currencies. I believe personally that it's the root of all evil, and I don't say it as an exaggeration. I think you can point to a lot of social issues, and we'll do that later, and show how the design of fiat currencies actually contributes to that. And then we'll talk about the solution of exactly what Bitcoin is, what blockchain is, the differences between them. We'll go into it. We'll play a little game to get everyone familiar with hashing, which is essentially the encryption protocol that runs Bitcoin, and it's fun to experience and to get your hands dirty. And number 4, we'll go down to what Israelis like to call tachlis, which means getting down to business and really understanding how to get your Bitcoin, grow your Bitcoin, and secure your Bitcoin. It's important over here, disclaimer, I'm not a financial advisor, so nothing I say can be used against me in a court of law, because you should do your own research and really dig into this by yourself and with your significant other before putting any capital at risk. So we're going to take a journey, but before we do, a little bit about the raffle. I'm going to just stop sharing my screen for a second, just get the raffle out. So the raffle, basically, I'm going to drop a link now in the chat for a Google form that you have to fill out. That's pretty much got your name, your email, and a simple question. Who is Satoshi Nakamoto? If you don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto is, I'm not going to penalize you for Googling it. We're not that kind of family. So feel free to Google it, look it up. Who is Satoshi Nakamoto? Right answers only. The link is in the chat now. So while I'm speaking, fill it out. You've got a chance of winning $100 in Bitcoin. We will do a raffle later. Anyone who's on the webinar, you don't have to be on the webinar for the raffle. It would be nice, but you have to have completed it. We'll do a raffle live and then whoever wins will go home with a little bit more hard assets in their pockets. What is money anyway? Can anyone, like, anyone have an idea what is money anyway? Money, it's not what you think. So money, it's an asset, right? It's something you use to buy, but it also stores value. So what is money? If you peel away a few layers, Michael Saylor, who's essentially the current Bitcoin, some would call him Bitcoin Jesus or Bitcoin's ambassador to the UN, because he comes from he's a CEO of MicroStrategy, massive business intelligence company, who's poured billions of dollars into Bitcoin, and starting last year, and he's become a massive Bitcoin evangelist. And he famous for saying money is the highest form of energy that human beings can channel. What does that mean? What does energy have to do with anything? And what does channeling energy mean? So if we think about the need for money arises when you have excess. Without excess, there's no need for, if we were living in a hand-to-mouth society where you could just farm your food, eat your food, go to sleep, you would not need money. You need money in order to store your excess wealth. So if you produce something that you can't eat today, you store it, and you use money as the medium to store that wealth. Now, if you want to buy something tomorrow, with that money, you can use it. So when I buy something with money, I'm essentially transferring wealth from the past to the future through this medium called money. I take the wealth that I take the energy that I stored, and I transfer it across space and time. And energy, money is a storage of all these energies. Like the market, right? So currently at today's exchange rate, quantum cryptography researchers have, their energy is priced at a higher level. So we value their output more than we value, say, a dog walker. So money, right? Why did I put it? Consume. We don't really consume. We don't really, unless you're a farmer, you don't consume. You don't go to work 9 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours a day, and in order to consume food, you go to work in order to channel your energy, your mental energy, your kinetic energy, the energy running through your laptop, to channel it into a store of wealth that you can then pass across space and across time. If you see that, that's a nice ode to the theory of relativity over there. So money is a value battery traveling across space and across time. And it's helpful to understand in that term, because then we really hit upon the benefit and the superiority of Bitcoin. Because once you define money as a as a container for storing energy and transmitting it across space and across time, then we can look at different forms of money, and we can uncover how good are they at transferring value across space, how good are they at transferring value across time. Essentially, how did we get here? We went from the caveman era to bartering. Eventually bartering has a limitation known as the double coincidence of want, which means if I'm bartering berries for woolly mammoth fur, then I need to have those berries by me. The guy who I want the woolly mammoth fur from needs to have berries himself. So obviously that requires you to keep track of thousands and hundreds of thousands of exchange rates between different products. Funny enough, that's what's happening now with all the tokens. You need it's essentially more of a barter economy for items of lesser value, as opposed to one global store of money. But that's for the Bitcoin maximalism webinar, which will happen and will get spicy. So stay tuned for that. After physical tokens, we move to paper money. Paper money it started in Sweden and around in the 15th century. The Bank of Sweden discovered that they could hold gold on behalf of the citizens and issue paper money as a way. Instead of having to lug gold bars around, you can take the paper money, something known as a bearer instrument, which, funnily enough, a lot of people confuse the dollar for today. The dollar is not a bearer instrument. No fiat currencies are bearer instruments. You can't take that money and claim anything with it. You can pay for it, you can pay taxes for it, but you can't. A bearer instrument means that you have a claim of some sort of hard asset for this paper. Then we moved on to electronic money. I don't know why the date is 1861, but essentially, I think I worked it out to around 30% of all your, between 10 and 30% of money is actual physical cash. Most of the money in the world that we have today is in a server somewhere, at your bank server or or PayPal server, or someone's server is storing your wealth. So electronic money is essentially just digitizing the fiat system, and today we have essentially cryptocurrency. So this famous meme, the world-class famous meme of hold on, I'm not sharing my screen. This is bad. At least you get to see the meme. So let's just kind of go back to the previous slide. Money is a container for storing and transmitting energy through space. The history of money from barter to Bitcoin. And essentially, this is where we at today. Back in, cavemen would swap one item for one item. Today, our money has essentially been unhinged from any form of rationality, any form of scarcity. Money is supposed to be scarce. In order for money to have value, it needs to have scarcity, because without scarcity, you run into essentially what's called something called the double spend problem, where you can just, I can give money to Jeff, and then I can give money to Green, and and in order to have real value, you need scarcity. Today, this is a famous meme that, if you're not familiar with the meme, get familiar with the meme, because you'll see it a lot more in the next couple months. The meme essentially, money printer go brr, which is the sound that a money printer makes. Since COVID began, we're going to go into the problem now. Since COVID began, we've printed about $4 trillion in the last year alone. So, this is a bit of a funny chart, because the Fed, for some reason, decided to M1 money is essentially includes all cash. That includes all money in receivables, like a very short-term, interest accounts with the bank. And for some reason, the Federal Reserve decided to include a whole bunch of other things in M1 money, and now the money supply just ballooned out of control. But around $4 trillion were printed in, since COVID began, and that's more than 14 times the amount of money that we started off with. Like this is around the Nixon Shock. What's the Nixon Shock? We had the anniversary of the Nixon Shock happened about. Today's the 18th, so it happened 3 days ago. On Sunday was the anniversary, the 15th of August, 1971. That was the anniversary of the Nixon Shock. The Nixon Shock essentially ended this system. There was a system known as the Bretton Woods system, which where every single currency was pegged to the US dollar. The US dollar was pegged to gold at $35 an ounce, and the result of that is that essentially gold became, the foundation of the entire world monetary system, and there was convertibility, which means that the governments could send dollars to the US and claim gold from Fort Knox, and that's essentially what screwed it all up, because the governments started to see that their dollars weren't worth as much as they were meant to be worth. And they started to claim gold, and that there was a run on the bank. And this man, Richard Nixon, you might know him from the smash hits such as Watergate and others, has this famous quote, and this goes back to essentially part of the very crux of the issue and the heart of the problem with the currency system that we have today. The word temporarily over here. no freedom, like when governments or when, you know, regimes take your freedom, it's always temporary first. And then they push it off and they have a filibuster and a committee, and they push it off and they push it off, and then it just becomes the norm. So the convertibility of dollar into gold was never meant to be a permanent thing. Like the Federal Reserve and all the people, you know, all the decision makers in Washington, they understand that having some sort of hard money, having a backing to your assets, not just having free floating currency that you can print willy-nilly, actually makes sense. But the political constraints of a massive run on Fort Knox meant that they had to put aside their better judgment. And now they just, you know, at the point where they just, fiat junkies, money printing junkies, when you get hooked on the power to print and create money out of thin air. And when you see that there's no, for the people at the top, the 10 or so, you know, the handful of chairmen in the Federal Reserve, there's no ramifications to this kind of graph. That's, you know, this is buying power of a US dollar. So I don't need to explain inflation more than just, you know, think about when you were in school, whenever that was, how much did you pay for like a packet of hot chips, a Coke, and a sloppy Joe? So, you know, if it depends on your answer, you'll date yourself, but, you know, that's kind of inflation, and that's worldwide. And it's okay for you. It might be okay for you. You might be earning, you know, wages that go up every year in a way that beats inflation. You might have stocks or crypto or assets that beat inflation. But imagine that you're working in a job where wage growth is rather stagnant, or imagine that your savings are in dollars. So you know, it kind of eats it up, and it really drives a wedge in between the have and the have-nots. Again, this is just another symptom of the problem. You can see how, you know, the revenue, the American tax revenue. This is in millions of billions of dollars. So 2K is actually $2 trillion. So revenue, we had about $2 trillion. The GDP, the debt of the US federal debt at the moment is close to $26 trillion. So we've added just 5 in the last year since COVID began. So this is what, like, debt is the engine. It's the mining. It's the fiat currency is mined through debt. When the Federal Reserve, the U.S. government issues treasury bonds, which are loans that the Federal Reserve then buys, and we create a cycle of debt of kind of America owing itself, America owing China, students owing America, house owners. So there's debt just balloons out of proportion. And, you know, these are just a few points to consider. Like, once you take, you know, once you get red pilled, you start to realize that the entire consumerist edifice, the entire culture of I got to spend now, I got to grow GDP at a rate that's faster than my enemies. I got to, you know, spend and you know, spend money that I don't have, buying things I don't like, buying things I don't need to impress people I don't like. That kind of attitude, it's driven by fiat currency and the fact that, you know, your money that you have today will buy you less tomorrow. So why save it? And if you're not good at investing, you don't want to take a risk, then your option is just to spend it. So, you know, your savings are worth less. Meanwhile, the government and the individuals are spending more money than they ever have. Then there's the flow of money. New currency comes into the system. We see like this $4 trillion growth in currency. So who gets that money? So if you're American, congratulations to you. You probably got a fat stimmy check, maybe 2 of them, maybe 3 of them in the bank. So that's one avenue, but that's not most of the money. Most of the money is going to the commercial banks and to, you know, to the established elite interest at cheapest interest rate than you can get a hold of it. For example, I got offered it right now. If I want to put my money in a Bank Mizrahi in Israel, I get a 0.5% interest rate to put my money in the bank. If I want to lend money from the bank, it's 9.7%. So, you know, I have a decent credit score. Like, I haven't taken out loans a lot, thank God, but I'm kind of fine. What about someone with a terrible, horrific credit score? They got to take payday loans at 20%, 30%, and, you know, sometimes even crazy monthly interest rates. Whereas the central banks and the commercial bank can lend to each other at the repo rate, which is a fraction of that. Governments can fund war by printing money. This one aged very well, unfortunately. If it wasn't for fiat, the unlimited money printer, then, you know, Afghanistan might have not happened. Because I'm not saying that Bitcoin would have prevented, like I saw today, would have prevented what happened in Afghanistan. That's not what I'm saying. I wish everyone there safety and security. But the fact that the US government could print as much money as they want allows them to be a little more flexible when deciding on how to allocate that money. And as we said, spend. That's the name of the game. So out of despair comes salvation. And essentially, Bitcoin is brand new, cutting edge tech. But Bitcoin is cutting edge technology. Hold on. Bitcoin is cutting edge technology, but it's based on some pretty old concepts. So essentially, this was over here. We see a ledger, a cuneiform ledger. I think from you know, some sort of Mesopotamian civilization that existed way back. And you see people were inscribing these ledgers with different you know, signatures and whatever. And these ledgers, sometimes some of them I would assume are private, but some of these ledgers were essentially stones in the public square that could record in a distributed way a whole bunch of information. So if there was ever a fight or like a challenge or some sort of a disagreement, a dispute, then you could always go and consult the latest agreed upon version of the stone tablets, which sounds similar to Bitcoin, to the consensus form. So it's all about the ledger. A ledger is a way to record information. A ledger is a way to record information sequentially. So we have, you know, yesterday's balance follows from the day before's balance, and is the starting point for today's balance. And so it's a way to record information. So the ledgers underwent a couple of iterations from the stone tablets of the yesteryear to double entry accounting, which essentially was one of the facilitating technologies that unlocked capitalism, stocks, common stock companies, and just the entire ecosystem, the entire financial world as we know it, to government controlled and centralized. So essentially, I would imagine when accounting first started, everyone was keeping their own books. There wasn't a central registrar of land ownership. There was a central registrar of identity, these are all types of ledgers. So land ownership, identity, money, credit scores. So all these are essentially controlled by either the government or your bank, or a centralized control, to distributed, decentralized, permissionless ledgers that have a mechanism known as consensus that allows everyone to participate, everyone to verify, and everyone to update and progress this ledger. So Bitcoin is a new take on very old technology that was kind of allowed for by the growth of cryptography breaking out, and the fact that we have high-speed internet and all the right pieces. And we'll see later, there's so many disciplines that are involved in Bitcoin. So yeah, we'll see later exactly what it makes up. So what's a blockchain, and what that got to do with Bitcoin? A blockchain is a community maintained distributed ledger, which means that instead of maintained means instead of the bank updating the ledger, it gets done by a distributed group of people, of nodes, with a set of rules on how to update that ledger, which is known as consensus. So we can say that, or certain ledgers could say that if a transaction A gets 50% or more of the vote, then that transaction gets validated. And of course, you need an incentive system. People aren't just going to run computing or stake tokens or lock up tokens, for fun, willy-nilly. You need to actually incentivize them with something. So that's kind of where Bitcoin's when you hear about Bitcoin mining, that's what Bitcoin mining, that's how it kind of works and what it's about. So this is a screenshot of what's called the blockchain. This is I'm going to drop the link in the chat quickly. So I think we'll just look at this. It's called Etherscan. So I'll just drop the name in the chat. Etherscan, this is an address form. So Etherscan allows me to go to this address. So a rather poor guy. It might have even been my wallet, one of my wallets, but it's not. So this address, you see the address number over there, the address name. You can see the transactions in or out. Like, you can click on those transactions and you will get more information on what they were, to who they were. And essentially, it's this kind of open source ledger that anyone can check, anyone can verify, and it's a game changer for transparency, for integrity. That's the technology side of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is built on this blockchain ledger technology, but Bitcoin is also an asset. Bitcoin has a dual nature. It's both an asset. When we talk about the asset of Bitcoin, we usually use a lowercase b. So small b is Bitcoin as a coin, like I use Bitcoin, dollars, whatever. Then when we use the capital B, we are talking about Bitcoin, the network. So this isn't the Bitcoin. I found Bitcoin block explorers a little less intuitive for beginners than an Ethereum block explorer. So that's why I chose this one. But a Bitcoin block explorer is pretty similar. It's got your transactions in and out. It's got the amounts. So that's the Bitcoin with a capital B, the network. It's the network of miners that mine transactions, that validate them and add them to the blockchain. Lowercase b, asset. Uppercase B is network. So we're moving on. And this is kind of probably, if there's one slide that you have to, see and remember, this is kind of Bitcoin's value proposition in a graph. So every 4 years, how many Bitcoins are mined each year? So every 4 years, the halving takes place. Right? The Bitcoin, every 10 minutes, a Bitcoin block is mined, which means that you're mining 10 minutes, you're mining 6 an hour, you're mining around 144 in a day. So you can do the calculations onward and onward. And every 10 minutes, when you mine a block, there's a block subsidy, a certain amount of new Bitcoins that get created, and they go out to the world, they distribute it to the miners. And this is, right now we're holding at 328,500 Bitcoin per year on mined. So, but that was way up to about 2.5 million at the beginning. Every 4 years, the new Bitcoin supply gets cut in half until it reaches in 2140, it will reach 21 million Bitcoin, or just below 21 million Bitcoin. So 21 million Bitcoin is the hard cap. It means that you'll always own one of 21 million, or 2 of 20, or 0.1 of 21 million. You'll never get diluted. You will never get your purchasing power of your Bitcoin in Bitcoin terms will never decrease. We have a saying that how much is one Bitcoin worth? One Bitcoin is worth one Bitcoin. It's really simple, as simple as that. And if we remember that, like when we talk about what is money, we said it's this massive value battery traversing time and space. So Bitcoin, when we compare it to gold, which was an earlier form of money and still serves as a store of value for some, compared to fiat currency, we understand that gold does a poor job of transferring money through space, right? It's not divisible. It's not portable. It's got a good. It's not, it's not easy to move across continents. It's not easy. You can't pay with a slab of gold. Fiat currency has a poor form in transferring wealth across time. So it's not censorship resistant. Someone can take it from you. Your fiat currency is only as good as the bank you store it in. The country that the Afghanis and the Lebanese right now are witnessing firsthand the cost of entrusting a bank. It's not scarce, so it loses its value. So Bitcoin does an excellent job of transferring value through both space and time. So both the dimensions, Bitcoin scores top marks. The only thing that Bitcoin doesn't have is, Avi, what's up?
Yeah, quick question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Why would you say that gold has a moderate scarcity metric when the amount of gold that there is in existence is all the gold that will ever be in existence? So why doesn't that fall under the same rubric of scarcity as a blockchain?
First of all, I semi agree with this chart. I think the one answer is the fact that Bitcoin has a provable scarcity. The amount of gold that's been mined isn't all the gold that's going to be mined. We don't really know how much gold there is in the underground. Like there could be more reserves that we just haven't discovered. And the second one is, I refer to Sir Elon Musk on this, and like eventually you can mine asteroids for like gold exists in spades. I don't think we'll get there in maybe in our lifetimes. Definitely not while we young enough to travel there. But gold exists in abundance in space. So Bitcoin in any sort of intergalactic scenario will always be provably scarce. Whereas gold, if we get the tooling required to go mine asteroids, gold starts to lose its value, its scarcity. So does it warrant a yellow color? Maybe not, but it's definitely not the provable scarcity of Bitcoin, where you have a transparent fixed schedule of supply that's going to run out in a couple that gets less and less every year. Gold, also think about the inflation of gold. Gold inflates at around 1.8%. So we're mining gold at that rate. In 4 years' time, or 3 years' time, when we get to the second halving, to the next halving, Bitcoin's inflation rate will drop below 1%, like decently below 1%. So then, if you're defining scarcity as the rate of new supply coming onto the market, then Bitcoin beats it hands down. So is gold in a different category to Bitcoin in scarcity? Maybe not. Maybe it's a marginal difference, but Bitcoin is definitely more scarce than gold. It's provably scarce, and it will be for forever and ever. Did that answer the question? Anything else?
No, yeah, thanks.
Thanks for the question, Greg. Let me talk about asteroids. So let's just try and just understand a little bit about what Bitcoin is in terms of like how to send a transaction, how to get a transaction through. So Bob and Alice are famous people in code examples. I didn't have the creativity to think of other names. Usually I'll go with some other names. Like, next time I'll use one of your names in my demos. But Bob sends Alice 1 Bitcoin, that gets added to a waiting list. So there's a waiting list of transactions. We'll see just now what it's called. And from that waiting list, the miners who are validators on this blockchain can then decide to choose and add the most urgent of these transactions into a single block. So it's kind of like you have all these loose blocks floating around in the waiting list. The miners come in and segment them nicely, one, tuck, tuck, tuck. And then each miner has this kind of page or block, right, of ordered transaction, and they want the merit. They want to have the merit to actually add that onto the blockchain, to append it to the ledger, to update the ledger. Everyone's balances get updated. Everyone's happy. Why do they want to do that? Because whoever gets to append it to the ledger can make money. They make Bitcoins. Right now, every block that gets added, you get 6.25 Bitcoin in block subsidies, and you get fees on top of that. So the way it works is the miners have to solve a puzzle. We'll see now what the puzzle is. I'll actually, give you a little demo of how it works with hashing. But essentially, the first one to solve the puzzle wins and gets the block reward. So this is kind of what's the waiting list of Bitcoin transaction called? It's actually called a meme pool, like a pool of memes. So it's short for a memory pool. So the memory pool is the home of all the blockchain transactions. Now let's play a little game. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. I'm going to drop a link in the chat, and we're going to just play a little game I like to call what the hash. So if you go in this so everyone's got is everyone on this tool? Let's type in "I love Bitcoin" with a lowercase b, or you can just copy paste it from the chat. And so if someone can write the last 4 letters, the last 4 characters of the output in the chat, that would really help us all, and you'd be one of my best friends. Is that what you're getting on SHA-256? That can't be right. Is anyone else getting something different? Yeah, that's it. So someone's doing something. So 215F is the right one. So 215F, maybe you have a space. If you have no, that doesn't help. So 215. Now add a full stop at the end of at the end of Bitcoin. So you add a full stop, and now what do you see? The whole thing changes, like it's completely different. And that's essentially what hashing is. So the way Bitcoin mining works, there we go. Ian, you win the prize. 504D for the win. So that's how Bitcoin mining works. Essentially, I give you, let's say, let's play another game. Now I go, I love, right? And now the way Bitcoin mining works, let's say I give you the words I love, right? I love. And now I told you, guess the word, right? Guess, yeah, Dovi, you've got a space in your Bitcoin. I think, no, Dovi's right. So guess the word that gives you the hash, right? 215F, right? And then you try a whole bunch of things. And then let me try it quickly on the guess the word that gives you the hash. So you try a whole bunch of things. You try, I want to get this. I want to get this bot hash, right? The 215F. So I try like I love steaks, steals. Yeah, I do love steals. I love steaks. No, I love humans. I love Thailand. Doesn't work. I love Bitcoin. Boom! It gives me what I want. So this is essentially how mining works, but at obviously a much grander scale. The miners are given some sort of an output that the input needs to match, and the input is all the data from the block. So the transactions, how much they were, who they get sent to, all the data from the block, and the input needs to generate an output. And all you're missing is a little nonce, and getting that little nonce can make you a very rich person. And there's entire farms that are burning through as much electricity as the nation of Greece just to find that little nonce. So when you find, that's how mining works in a nutshell. You want more information, like, I'm going to share my contacts. Most of you, Mina Stum, have my contacts. I'm going to share my contacts afterwards. Like, honestly, any questions, like we have, we also have a Coinmama Telegram group that you can join. Any questions that you have, please, shoot it over. I'm happy to chat, and like, even if it's a personal question about how do I, like, I've got this issue, or like with this wallet, or how do I, what's the best this to, like anyone, any kind of question, I'm available. I like to help. I like to assist. And if I don't know the answer, I can probably point you in the right direction. So let's carry on with the show. So we got this kind of smart contracts beyond Bitcoin. We'll move through it quickly. There's a blockchain can do more than just send and receive. So you've got the idea of a smart contract, which enabled two parties to interact with each other, to contract with each other without the need for a lawyer. It's automated. It executes when conditions are met. And smart contracts have led to a whole bunch of different different use cases. One of them is NFTs. If anyone's it's a bad picture, LeBron and Ben Simmons, but anyway, one of them is NFTs. So NFTs started off with CryptoKitties in 2017, and NFT stands for non-fungible token. It's digital artworks, digital games, anything that's unique that can be represented as a token. And as you can see, they sell for a bunch of money. So LeBron, an NBA Top Shot sold for about almost for $387,000. There was most expensive CryptoKitty sold for crazy amounts, and Beeple, some sort of an artist, he took like a picture every day and uploaded that, and the Christie's auction house sold it for $69 million. So this NFTs are going wild right now. It's a super hot space. I hope we can do a show on them with some incredible guests soon. So stay tuned for that. Then there's DeFi as well, which we also need to cover. It's super important. DeFi refers to every single financial application can be remade using smart contracts. So let's take the example of lending, right? So now you go to the bank, you want a loan. The bank is a single centralized entity. They give you money, you pay them back with interest. What DeFi can do is we can have lenders lending into a pool called Compound or any other pool, lending into this contract. And that contract is sort of like a vault, and the vault holds a bunch of money that borrowers can then borrow from. And the borrowers pay interest and pay back with interest to the vault, and the vault can then pay out the lenders. So you have an automated, fully transparent platform. You don't need any banks in the middle. You have at the moment there's no credit scores around this. It's purely collateralized lending. So if you want to take a loan, you have to put up some collateral so that if you default, they can take your collateral. But there are moves toward uncollateralized lending, and the market will get there. But this is huge. It's a massive 5.8 billion, not 5.8, 589 billion by 2025. So DeFi and NFT are actually merging together, which is super interesting. And this is definitely a theme for a future show. In what's called the metaverse. Like people are playing and making money and doing all the stuff in one space. Okay. Then we have the plan. What's the plan? What's your plan? Get your first sats. I should have told you how with Coinmama, but the first thing you need to do, and this should have been the first slide. Like a lot of times, I know me personally. I know I've spoken to a few friends, a few of you, and what happened to this? Can you see me? Yeah. So the video went off for some reason. So a lot of people, for some reason, a lot of people like to first, get a bit of a feel for what they're doing. If you haven't yet entered the raffle, if you joined late, let me just reshare it in the chat. You can fill out the form. And
Don't.
what? Don't. You miss it, you say. Oh, you want to win money, cash money. Let me just share it. Some people came a little late, and it's better for the. So if you have like a few minutes to fill out the form, we're about to do the raffle. So get your first sats. That's the first thing you do before you think. Before you got to jump in and then get your first sats. Make it like it doesn't have to be a lot. Just get your feet wet and learn how it goes. Then there's storing your wallet. There's storing your crypto. There's levels to this, like everything else. There's massive levels. Level number one and the rookie level is to leave your coins on an exchange. Because if you leave your coins on an exchange now, in this instant, Coinmama isn't an exchange, for example, like when we send crypto directly to your wallet. So, but if you leave it on a traditional exchange, the exchange has your keys, not your coins. The exchange gets hacked, you're screwed. Second level is an online or mobile wallet where you have actually access to your private keys, but the private keys live on the internet. And it's exposed to all forms of shady dark web type characters. Do I recommend trading on multiple exchanges? I do. I recommend redundancy in anything regarding crypto. I mean, I don't recommend, this isn't financial advice, but I recommend I think even not from a financial standpoint, like having redundancy is a healthy thing, especially in crypto, where the regulatory landscape is changing all over, and if your one exchange goes down, some exchanges have different features and products that you might not get. And I think that's one of the beauties of crypto, is that like with your bank, you're limited to one bank. So if FNB or Banca Poalim or Wells Fargo has a product that you want to buy, there's a certain mortgage that's applicable to you, or a student account that's applicable to you, and you're a customer of another bank, you can't open an account there and start taking advantage. Whereas crypto, I think the beauty is that there's no exclusivity here, and that there's you can trade on exchanges, you can trade on dexes, on swaps, on pools, and the more redundancy you have, the better. I think in general in this field, and especially when it comes to exchanges. So level 2 is keyless wallets. You've got products like Zengo that have multi-party computation, it's called. That's a different story altogether how it works, but essentially it's a little bit more secure than having your keys exposed to. You still have your keys, you still have access to your keys, but they encrypt it on your device, and it's a little bit better than having it and there's more than one key, so there's redundancy over there, and it's better than just having your keys exposed to the internet. Number 3, level 4, sorry, excuse the slide, but I did have a disclaimer that I wasn't a graphic designer. Level 4 cold storage is having just like a ledger with your money on it, having some sort of keeping your keys offline. I'm just going to type in Ledger and Treasure. These are the 2 cold storage devices if you want to go check them out and get yourself one. Level 4 is multi-sig. Multi-sig, level 5. Multi-sig is, imagine you have an account, but in order to spend from that account, you need your brother that yo, what's up, Doggy? What's cooking? I saw a raised hand. Okay, so until Dovi asks his question, we'll move to multi-sig. Well, essentially, you need 2 out of 3 keys, for example, to unlock. So I have an account, but in order to spend my Bitcoin, I need to sign. My brother needs to sign. My brother, and my dad have keys, and 2 of us have to sign in order to spend. So that way, if you have multi-sig, if someone gets access to your keys, they can't spend it without getting access to the other 2 keys, one of the other 2 keys. And number 5, I would say, is running your own node. So it's not exactly, you can mix and match. You can run your own node with, and incorporate some sort of multi-sig. But running your own node is makes you what's called a first-class Bitcoin citizen. You validate your own transaction. You're really taking part in the ledger. Learn, but like before we get to dive deeper, I think it's first, and I'm explaining my own journey, like that I started taking in 2017. Like I kind of, I had a bit of I read a bit about it. I got excited. Like I saw, pump, and like my natural flight or fight response kicked in, and it drove me to FOMO in, to just pour into Bitcoin. I bought the initial buy. I had to wait nervously to get verified. Bought, and then I started learning. Before I dived into, and I started playing around with other coins maybe, but before I really dived in, I started learning. And there's so much to learn. And if you want, like, eventually we're putting out more books and more material, beginners and more advanced. But if you want like specific recommendations on what to learn, subjects to learn, and there are Bitcoin books that can teach you this. But for example, cryptography, like if you're a maths inclined person, that like without crypto, with learning cryptography and the history of it and how ciphers work and encryption and public key, private key signatures. If that's not your vibe, if you're I've spoken to a lot of people in the space who come from an arts background, and they love it. They love it because it gets them to understand cults and communities. Like, essentially, Bitcoin is a cult, and I'm not afraid to admit it. It's cult behaviors. And if you want to understand Bitcoin and cryptos, it's better to go learn how cults and religions behave than I think how public companies behave. I think Bitcoin, cryptos, they behave more like cult. Like the value drivers of this economy are more about the community and cult sentiment, and how much excitement and enthusiasm you can generate in a group of people, versus very dry cash flow calculations that determine the value in the old world. So, if you want to understand crypto and Bitcoin, understanding the herd mentality and network effects, like this is all super important. The history of money, as we spoke about, economics, both like economics, like a supply and demand, very simple thing, but also behavioral economics. The Bitcoin can't be hacked unless it's a 51%. The only way Bitcoin can be hacked is through a 51% attack. But until quantum comes along, but that's something else. And the idea behind the 51% attack is that you need to buy up 51% of the mining power in order to attack Bitcoin. And the idea is that no one would want to do that because it kind of jeopardizes once you buy up all that, all that power, why not just mine honest blocks and earn money as opposed to attacking it? So, that's a different webinar, but essentially, I think I foresee the only real risk to Bitcoin is a 51% attack from a nation state without the intention of profit. So there's no profit involved in, like, hacking Bitcoin won't be profitable for you. So nation states might still choose to do so for political reasons, to preserve the sovereignty and the superiority of their coin. And then in terms of, what else you can do, dive deeper. So number one is once you have your Bitcoin, you can stake it. There are platforms out there like Celsius, BlockFi. Again, if you want exact details on how to get started, reach out to me. They give you some sort of interest for your Bitcoin. That's a great place to start. Buy your first NFTs. Get involved in digital art and gaming economy, and we all love. Most of us loved collecting things as children. We collected, personally, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, all that stuff. And this is just for adults with money value and digital. It's a very cool space. Stake into a DeFi pool as a liquidity provider. So LPs, what an LP is essentially, you have these exchanges where anyone can come and deposit tokens. The tokens serve as liquidity for traders, and the traders are trading, they're trading back and forth with these tokens in the pool. And as a liquidity provider, you get a cut of the trading fees. So trading fees are probably the engine. It's the oil that makes this whole industry work. It's the oil that makes Wall Street work. That's how, you know, they make their cut of every exchange, brokers fees and all that. But that was reserved for suits and ties, not, you know, simple men in leopard shirts. So the fact that I can now go and make trading fees just like a Wall Street big shot, that's very, very, very cool. It democratizes, you know, I'm not just being my own bank, I'm being my own Morgan's like investment bank. I'm being my own broker. So, you know, like it's very cool and you know, it's worthwhile checking out. And the fourth one is if you can like learn some code, and not just so you might not be a Bitcoin or blockchain developer, but it helps you know, if you want to really deep dive into the space, there's there's an understanding of the coins of Bitcoin, of other coins. There's an understanding of what makes a good investment and on what makes a coin, you know, less desirable, that can only be understood by learning some code. It will also give you an advantage if you want to take some data and learn how to, you know, learn how to work with that. So you know, it always ends up with learn some code, because I highly recommend it. I think it's a crucial skill to have in any space, but especially in the crypto space. And that's it. I think the first most important thing is get your hands on your first sats, get down and dirty with it, and then you can carry on. But I'm going to stop sharing my screen if there's any questions. Otherwise, I'm going to prepare quick the raffle, and we're going to do it live with a screen share. Regulator issues. I think it's different per jurisdiction. Ian asked, how do you see the regulator issues playing out? I think it's different for each jurisdiction. I think I think in the short term, you've got to see countries like the US, the UK, South Africa, Israel clamping down on. I don't know why South Africa is clamping down, because they could actually fall in the second category. So those countries clamping down on crypto, you know, whether it's, you know, whether it's token sales that are coming back. I mean, they're not RCOs anymore; they are DOs now. But this you know, it's a lipstick on a pig. So the regulator is not going to love that. DeFi, you know, the infrastructure bill. There was a whole hoopla around an amendment that would have made proof of stake validators liable to some tax requirements. So they're coming after that. People who invest in DeFi might be considered money, might need money transmitter licenses. So the regulators are going to like kind of start clamping down more and more. I think there's always going to be a domain in crypto that the regulators don't touch, and because, you know, the regulators are forced, they're playing a reactionary game. Crypto moves 10 steps forward, the regulators wake up and decide to you know, take their marks. So I think there's always going to be a space beyond the reach of the regulator, because they're catching up to 2018, 2019's tech. They're not, you know, they're not in the space of play to earn games, like how you're going to tax that, or secret smart contracts. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that the regulators will only start thinking about in 3 years' time. On the long term, on the other hand, you have countries like El Salvador and maybe Costa Rica and Puerto Rico and like you know, or Bahamas, all these crypto-friendly jurisdictions. Right now, they kind of like outlaws, and no one really takes them seriously. But I think eventually, I hope, I mean, that the snowball effect will kick in, and more countries will shift towards the El Salvador side of the game. And if, you know, if Bitcoin does well enough, eventually the countries that are antagonistic will have to throw in the towel and join the party. So over the short term, you know, definitely more regulatory clampdown in the West. By West, I mean like anyone who thinks American, and like and while at the same time there's going to be a massive embrace of crypto, Bitcoin and crypto in countries like El Salvador and other countries that have nothing to lose, maybe Iran, maybe like you know, maybe countries outside of the America's orbit. And in the long term, you know, it's probably going to merge together. So yeah, let me just get this. Okay, I'm getting the let's see how many. I got 13 responses here. 13 responses. Let's see. One of you gonna win. One of you about to win $100 in Bitcoin. Who's excited?
Dudu, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, sure. Fire away.
So for all the critique of fiat currency, it's funny because everyone who's still talking about all the blockchain currencies still define the value of those blockchain currencies in terms of fiat. So even we talk about $100 worth of Bitcoin, right? We don't talk about X amount of Bitcoin as its own staple of value. Do you see a point in which any of the blockchain currencies can be completely divorced from fiat, or are they still going to need those currencies in order to define their worth?
I think that point's already happening. Like I've got a he was on the call earlier. I don't know if he's still here. With my friend Alon Schwarzman, who like keeps urging me to look at my portfolio in Bitcoin terms. So there are like, you know, there are people that are, if you trade in crypto, for example, and you're looking at you're counting your winnings in Bitcoin in fiat terms, and you're doing it wrong. Like it might be good. It might be good to do. It might be good from a perspective of you know, if you have investors and you want to show them that you're making coin, fine. But most people, like most traders that are honest with themselves, will price themselves in Bitcoin. So I think it's already what you're talking about is the shift towards the unit of account, which is the third function of money. So money has three functions, and money has three functions, and the third function of money is unit of account. And I think it first needs to money first needs to fulfill the other two functions. Right now, it's fulfilling store of value really well. It needs to fulfill means of exchange, which means people need to start buying stuff with it, and that's kind of happening, you know, in a very small scale, and it needs to increase as well. And then I think the world will shift eventually, not to Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin is too big to price in, but I think we'll shift to what's called Satoshis, which is 1/100 millionth of a Bitcoin. So people are already and will start pricing in Satoshis. But to your question, basically today's price, what's Bitcoin at 45? So we're raffling off 200,000 Satoshis. 200,000 222,000 Satoshis. That's what we're raffling off now. So you're right. I should have actually priced it in Satoshis, but I'm ready. The raffle's ready. There's 13. 1, 2, 3. Hold on. No, this is not everyone. So let's go on this thing. Share screen. Can you see my screen? You see all the names? Someone say yes, no,
Yep.
maybe. So let's go. Pick. Okay, who's it going to be? We have two groupers in the house who are both from Coinmama, and if they win, we will donate that money to a charity of their choice. So that's kind of how we go with it. And everyone else. There's also my sister is in there. So just a disclosure, but this is random. So I don't have any control. I'm not favoring anyone. Let's go. 1, 2, 3. And your winner of 100 Bitcoin is Eddie Lever. Mazal tov. Well done. We'll get in touch with you to claim your Bitcoin. Thank you everyone for joining our next. This was a nice start to get my feet wet, get off, I hope to see you on many more. We'll have more raffles, more exciting times. We'll have guests on. We'll have interesting topics. This is just the beginning. I got a good webcam. I got a good friend that lets me use his beautiful apartment for filming. I got everything I need. All the ideas in my head. I got you guys, and now we can just go forward and make more people aware of what they can achieve for themselves and their family in the space. So cheers and have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Dudu.
Dudu.
Thank you so
Great.
much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.